Good afternoon, directors and guests, staff, and members of the public. As this meeting gets underway, I would like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional unceded territory of the Comox First Nation. My name is James Warren, and as the Corporate Legislative Officer, I will call this inaugural meeting of the Comox Valley Regional District Board of Directors to order. Thank you to everybody for attending today, both in person and on Zoom. The first order of business at inaugural board meetings is to conduct the election of the chair and vice chair. I will begin by calling for nominations for the position of chair. Any director may put forward another director's name. Each time a director is nominated, Jake will note his or her last name. I will call for nominations 3 times, and at the close of nominations, I will ask each nominee in reverse order from which they were nominated if they will let their name stand for election. If more than one director is nominated, each candidate will have 3 minutes to make a campaign presentation. Following the speeches, we will conduct the election by way of an email to each of you requesting your vote through an online poll. Please enter an alias in the poll so that your vote secrecy is preserved, and make your selection for chair or vice chair and press the send button. When all of the votes are submitted, Mariah Fort, Jake Martins, and myself as statutory officers will count the ballots, and I will then announce the results. If you experience any technical difficulties in submitting your vote, you can text me directly. If there are more than 2 candidates and no candidate receives a clear majority of votes on the first ballot, the candidate with the lowest number of votes will be removed and the voting will be conducted again. This process will be used until there is 1 candidate who receives a clear majority of ballots cast. If there are 2 tie votes, the board will have to pass a resolution to either determine the election of chair by the drawing of lots or to start the election process over. The process for the election of the vice chair is the same as I've just described. However, candidates will be allowed just 2 minutes for their speech. Following the elections, I will ask for a resolution to destroy the voting results. Are there any questions? I see Director Grieve, you have your hand up.
I'm just trying to jump the queue.
Very good, okay. Any other questions from anyone? I don't see any, so I will call a first time for nominations for the position of chair of the Comox Valley Regional District Board of Directors. Director Grieve.
I'd like to nominate Jesse Kettler for chair of the Comox Valley Regional District.
Seconded.
Thank you. I'll call a second time for any further nominations for chair. Call a third and final time for any nominations for position of chair. Seeing none, Director Kettler, do you allow your name to stand for position of chair? And I'm pleased to announce you as chair of the CVRD for 2021. And now I will open the floor to nominations for position of vice chair. Director Grieve, your hand is still up. No?
I'd like to nominate Maureen Swift for vice chair.
Second.
Thank you. And call a second time for any further nominations for vice chair. Director Morin?
I'd like to nominate Director Arzina Hamir, please.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
And I'll call a third time for any further nominations for position of vice chair. Seeing no further nominations, Director Hamir, do you allow your name to stand for position of vice chair?
I do.
You do, okay. And Director Swift, do you allow your name to stand for the position of vice chair? Director Swift?
Probably on mute.
I think it looks like her microphone is on. Just wondering if Director Swift, are you?
There's these technical difficulties sometimes.
Director Swift, if you can hear us, but we can't hear you, if you could text me your indication whether you'd like to be considered for nomination of vice chair. And I will try emailing quickly here to see if that works. Oh, there she is. Allowed to talk. Here we go.
I will stand.
She will stand. Okay, so Director Swift, I think we've got you now as a panelist, and I understand you will let your name stand for position of chair, vice chair, excuse me.
Yes, I will. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Thank you. And at this time, I'll turn the floor over to you, Director Swift, for a 2-minute campaign presentation.
Well, thank you. I hope that you can hear me. I'm very interested in learning more about the regional district and standing as vice chair. I am a third-term councillor from Comox. I've served on the Sewage Commission since 2011. I served a term on the Solid Waste and the Hospital Board, and served as the vice chair on the Sports Commission this last year. And I've been the 911 rep since 2018. So being retired, I have a flexible schedule and I have lots of time to devote to working on the CVRD board, and I would be delighted to take on this responsibility if the board so desires. Thank you.
Thanks, Director Swift. And Director Hamir, I'll turn the mic over to you.
Thank you, and thank you for the nomination and for letting me speak to why I think I would be a great vice chair. So this is, if elected, this would be my 3rd year being vice chair, and it's really a position that I enjoy and relish. Some of the learnings that I've had over the last couple of years is that the vice chair is really the backup and the sounding board for the chair. You know, the chair position, especially now with the many projects that the CVRD is undertaking, can be a very heavy role and a heavy responsibility. So I see the position of the vice chair as very much a supporting position, and really it's someone that has the back of the chair. So I think over the last year, Jesse and I have developed a really great relationship of trust, and we're able to speak to each other quite frankly, which I think really helps move situations forward. I think it's also really important that an electoral area position be on the chair, because not all of the other directors have access to what happens at the Electoral Areas Services Committee. And a lot of the issues that come up for the regional district are specific to electoral areas. So it allows for someone who's been to those meetings and has some background information and knowledge to really bring forward what has been discussed in a deeper understanding. So for those reasons, I would very much like to continue on as vice chair of the Comox Valley Regional District. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Director Hamir. So now, directors, I'll remind you, Jake will send you an email here momentarily with a request to participate in the voting through an online poll. That will go to Directors Kettler and Arbor as well here in the boardroom, so that we can, you don't have access? You could text me, and then it's preserving the secrecy. Do you have can you text me? Okay, thank you. Okay, so directors, there will be an email coming from Jake, and we'd ask you to participate in that poll. Please enter an alias in the poll where you are able to select your vote for the selection of vice chair, and then press the send button. And I'll ask Mariah and Jake if we can gather in the lunchroom. We'll count the ballots and carry on from there.
Feels like the Jeopardy thing should be on.
Did you see who the new host is going to be?
Yeah. Is he permanently the new host or?
I think he's interim.
Yeah, yeah.
Who is it?
Ken Jennings, the guy who won so many times that,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
That's
I
fitting.
think they're gonna revolve. I think they're going to have revolving hosts.
Edwin and I could sing the Jeopardy theme music.
Let's do it.
Coming from the Comox Valley live on YouTube, it's the Comox Valley Regional District waiting for election results.
It's like waiting for Pennsylvania to come in. Like, there's only 10 of us voting.
So directors, this is our first time conducting this online poll, and I am going to have to ask that we do it again. When the directors get the email and it takes you to the online page, you've all entered your alias correctly, but I do need you then to select your selection for vice chair, either Director Hamir or Director Swift. So some of those weren't noted, and we don't have a clear majority of votes being cast. And so I'll ask those that participated by texting as well to conduct that vote again. Jake should be sending you that email shortly to conduct the poll again. So bear with us, please. Any questions at all from anybody? Nope, seeing none. Okay.
So James, we're going to get a brand new link, or do we use the old one?
Yes, Jake's sending out the email again.
I think we are going to need a musical interlude, so whoever wants to chime in. That sounds like the jazz version.
Okay. Who's got the music on? So at the close of voting, thank you for your patience with that. At the close of voting, I'm pleased to announce that Director Hamir, you've been elected as Vice Chair of the Board for 2021.
Thank you.
So now I'll ask for a motion to destroy the ballots and otherwise for the vote.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? Is that, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Any opposed to the motion to destroy the ballots? Seeing none, motion carries. So I will now turn the floor over to Chair Kettler. I'll let you take your spot. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Even though this year's been full of challenges, I've enjoyed working with this board and staff, and we're able to accomplish a number of notable things. We moved to this new building, which I really commend staff for dealing with the logistics and with the upheaval of that. Our communities continue to collaborate, and we completed the regional housing needs assessment, which is now feeding into the poverty reduction strategy. We continue to build our relationship with Comox First Nation, and together we unveiled the new directional signage in the Coast Salish Ajuatham language for Seal Bay Park, Zwaiwe Luck. We continued construction of the Comox Valley Water Treatment Project. We also continued work with our liquid waste management process for the Sewage Commission and worked with our KFM partners and continue to work with them on servicing the Southlands. We had to open a regional level 2 emergency operations center this year. And through that, we helped interpret some of the provincial health orders and disseminate that information to our community. We have a really great team here, and everybody's pitched in this year. Director Hamir, of course, has been vice chair, but also co-chair of the Solid Waste Board. Director Frisch chaired a Sewage Commission. Director Grant chaired the Water Committee, and Director Morin was vice chair. Director Cole Hamilton represented us at the Vancouver Island Coastal Communities Climate Action Steering Committee, as well as the Climate Caucus. Director Grieve was chair of the Electoral Areas Service Commission. Director Swift is our appointee to North Island 9/11. Director Arbor is chair of the Sports Commission, and Director Hillian is our appointee to the Comox First Nation treaty process. And you all do so much more than that, but I just wanted to illustrate what a team effort it is here at the Regional District. So thank you all for all your efforts, and I'm proud of the work that we're doing here as a local government as we navigate these challenging times. And we have a new member of the board today, Courtney Councillor Melanie Mccollum. So can we give a round of applause to Melanie and welcome her to the board. And also congratulations once again to Vice Chair Hamir. Okay, on to business. We have a motion to go in camera following the open portion of the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. And that's according to section 91E and 91K of the Community Charter. Is there anyone opposed to moving in camera? Hearing and seeing none, that's carried. And we're on to adoption of minutes for October 27th.
Move adoption.
Second.
Thank you. Is there anyone opposed to adoption of minutes? Hearing and seeing none, that is also carried. We're on to petitions and delegations. We have two late delegation requests. So we will need to take a vote of the board. It's a 2/3 majority, and we will do them separately. First, we have Kathleen Pitt. And so I will go through the roll to ask the board if they wish to have this delegation this evening, starting with Director Hamir.
In favor.
Thank you. Director Arbour. In favor. Director Grieve.
In favor.
In favor. Director Hillian.
In favor.
Thank you. Director Moran.
In favor.
Thank you. Director McCollum.
In favor.
Thank you. Director Cole Hamilton.
In favor.
Thank you. Director Swift. Director Swift, are you able to respond?
In favor?
Thank you. And Director Grant.
In favor.
And that's unanimous. Thank you. Before we receive Kathleen Pitt, we'll just take a vote on the second delegation. For Rob Buchan from 3L Developments. So I'll go through the roll again. Director Hamir.
I am in favor, but as Mr. Buchan has been in front of the board on numerous occasions, I'm hoping that the information that we receive is new and look forward to hearing that.
Thank you. Director Arbour. Thank you. Director Grieve.
In favor.
Director Hillian.
In favor.
Director Moran.
In favor.
Director McCollum.
In favor.
Director Cole Hamilton.
In favor.
Director Swift.
In favor?
Thank you. Director Grant.
In favor.
And again, that's unanimous. Thank you so much. And we will welcome Kathleen Pitt. I believe she's on the phone. Yes, and
Hello.
Before you begin, just to let you know that you have 10 minutes for your presentation.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, because
Go
I'm
ahead.
bad with computers. Here we go. First of all, thank you to the board for letting me speak. My name is Kathleen Pitt, and I'm speaking on behalf of the proposed park in Riverwood. This property, if not made into the Riverwood, the donation of the property for the park, I would think should be bought by the CVRD. So if you don't buy it, there's a couple other options. It's going to be used as you have currently zoned it, using its natural resources that it's been blessed with. This means logging the wood and creating gravel pits. That is what you have zoned it for right now. Another pause. So the CVRD has a choice to make. It's an unfortunate one, but one that needs to be addressed. Either the CVRD buys the property and it becomes the responsibility of the CVRD to care for and look after the lands, allow people on it and not have a private owner anymore, or the lands will be made into a park and housing for over 300 families, or the lands will be utilized for their fullest extent, meaning the forest will be clear cut and logged and turned into gravel pits. And that's it. So please take into consideration, and well, of course, in a perfect world, it would be let the zoning happen, but we know that's not going to happen. So buy it. And so the land can be kept as it is, and you would have the jurisdiction to do whatever you want with it. Saying no to this park and no to buying it means you're making the choice to have its natural resources used, logged, dug up, and destroyed. Ownership of these lands has its privileges. as long as you're the one making the rules. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are you open to questions?
No,
No?
no, thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation. Director Helian?
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to ask where the presenter lives, as she didn't give any identifying information. Just out of curiosity, whether she's a resident of the Comox Valley or in which part. That was all. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, that's been first and second. Anyone opposed to receipt of that delegation? Hearing and seeing none, that passes. And we're on to the second delegation with Rob Buchan. Can I get a first and second?
Move. Second.
Thank you. Welcome, Rob. Come up to the podium, please.
Is this on? Thank you for receiving me. I appreciate it, and congratulations, Chair, on your election.
Thank you.
I'm just going to provide some brief comments, not like the previous presentations. So we have amended our application to respond to concerns and to be entirely located within the RGS core settlement area designated as an urban expansion area. The non-compliant aspect to our application is a matter of timing and jurisdiction. The proposal is consistent with land use in the RGS. For the record, our proposal is to give the CVRD, KFN, and community groups about 65% of the lands. The proposed settlement node is only 25% of the site. We have amended our application to provide a range of affordable housing options. Well over half of the housing units would be in the affordable range. We have amended our application to be serviced by publicly owned and operated water and sewer. We have committed to continue to be responsive to concerns and comments. Our goals are to protect the land's environmental values, to provide the trails and greenways that the public want, to provide public access to Stoughton Falls, and to provide the north-south road and bikeway length through the property. None of these goals are served by rejecting the application. If the board does not wish to approve the application, will it purchase the lands? The owner's preferred solution is for the CVRD to purchase the lands. He does not want to log the lands and would prefer to not develop the lands. If the CVRD does not approve the proposal or purchase the lands for parkland, then the board is saying that it is better to use the lands as they are currently zoned. Let us be clear, under the current zoning, this means the owner will proceed with logging the lands, and opportunity for achieving the many regional goals will be diminished. The future of these lands are in your hands. 3L is wanting and willing to work with you to find a future of the lands which provides for park for the public. We hope we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you open for questions?
I certainly am.
Great. Director Helian, is your hand up from the last time, or do you have a new question?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Director Grant?
Thank you. Rob, I'm just wondering, is there any middle ground here? I mean, I think that the public, certainly the public in our area, would really like to be able to continue to use the falls as they have for hundreds of years around here. And it seems like the development that you've proposed is not, it's not getting through. I'm wondering if there's any middle ground that we could, is there any kind of way of discussing a middle ground where we could come up with a solution?
Through the chair, I'd like to say yes, but time is limited. Time is limited for a solution, and part of that is simply because of the economics of forestry right now. Export logs are at an all-time high, and the owner is being at this for about 14 years and is at the position where he's going to make a decision. So I'd like to say yes, and there is a small amount of time for discussion to try to come up with a solution that achieves what the public wants. And as I mentioned from the very first time I came here, that was my hook into working on this project, is because I care deeply about those lands, and I'd like to see the vast majority of them, if not all of them, to be preserved. So I hope so. I hope that there is an opportunity in the very near future to address this. And for those of you that haven't been on the site, it's not the best time of the year to go, but I can assure you it is a valley gem. And I hope that collectively within the valley, there's a way to achieve this goal.
Thank you. Director Grieve.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to Rob, I guess I'm the last man standing that was actually part of the committee that forged the regional growth strategy back in 2010. And I know that the big concern in my area, electoral area C, was the expansion of urban development north of the Puntledge River. It was like the Rubicon. We didn't want anybody extending past that. We looked at it as the Nanaimoization of Courtney. Now, during the process of the regional growth strategy, somehow the electoral areas ended up needing 18 acres if they wanted to subdivide. So in other words, we were locked into 9 hectare minimum.
Do you have a question for Mr. Buchan?
I certainly do, madam.
Thank
if
you.
you just give me the latitude to finish. I think that because of the concern over extension north of the Puntledge, and it was expressed by our advisory committees that you went back to the table and brought a different submission in there. And this isn't public knowledge, I don't think, except for people who really have followed it, that the expansion area south of the Puntledge was the focus of the urbanized development. My question to the developer is that because it is an urban style development, and our hang up here is probably the minimum lot size, have you approached the city of Courtney with regards to maybe annexing that area, which would bring services to my area in that part of area C as well?
Through the chair, yes.
Could you elaborate?
Yes, sorry. Yes, we have approached Courtney and had a discussion, I'd say about 8-9 months ago, and there was no appetite for looking at an annexation at the time. And I say, this relates to this issue is about timing. It is a designated, the area we're looking at is a designated urban expansion area. And the timing is not appealing for the city of Courtney at this time, which I think is unfortunate, because the cost of not trying to achieve it through a development approval or purchasing it outright is significant.
Thank you. Director Morin, do you have a question?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I had a question about the timber and the gravel on the site, because it's my understanding that a lot of the timber is gone, and actually the gravel in the area isn't even that great. So, and there would of course be a riparian zone that wouldn't be able to be cleared. So, I'm just wondering if you can answer the question about the actual timber and the actual resources that are there, because my recollection from looking at the site is that it's not loaded with resources as described.
Through the chair, I am advised by the owner who has had the property scaled recently that there is a considerable sum of Douglas fir as well as cedar on the property. And when I say considerable, it's a lot. I'm not permitted to say in this context exactly how much it is, but it's a lot. In terms of gravel, he had an offer from a gravel operator earlier this year to buy it for a gravel site because it's very high quality gravel. In terms of riparian, yes, there is a riparian development permit designation on the site. And as as the board will have been advised or may be advised by staff, a development permit designation does not extinguish permitted land uses. It means in those development permit areas, you need a permit. And once you go and get a permit and you comply with the guidelines, you get to proceed with the legal land use. So the riparian designation does not mean preserving all the trees in the DP area.
Just a quick follow-up, Chair, if I may.
Go ahead.
So is it fair to say, though, that most of the timber has already been logged from that site? The majority of the timber?
Trying to recall the aerial in my mind, I think that the majority is still present. There was certainly a fair bit logged from the area within the previously proposed location, not entirely, but a fair bit. You will see the extent if this goes the way that I hope, and I think the Valley hopes it will not go. You will see the extent of that property. But if you take a look at an aerial photograph, you'll see just how much standing timber there is.
Yeah, I mean, I have looked at it. I mean, I've been here for 55 years, so I'm fairly familiar with the area as well. I think there's some south of the river, but not north of the river. But I won't belabor it further. But I don't believe that I don't believe that's completely accurate. But that may be the information you received. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing and hearing none, is anyone opposed to receipt of the delegation? Seeing and hearing none, that is carried. Thank you so much, Mr. Buchan.
Fucking.
Thank
you.
Thanks. Okay, so we're on to reports. Oh, right.
Move receipt.
Second.
Sorry, we're going to vary the agenda for Director Lee. We're going to bring I-5, the Black Creek Oyster Bay Service Committee, forward. Thank you. And I-6, thank you. Anyone opposed to varying of the agenda for those items? Oh, Director Arbor.
Sorry, for item 6, we've got multiple recommendation. Was there a particular recommendation? So I propose that we just bring that one forward and not the entire slate.
Okay, so that is recommendation.
Oh, it's actually recommendation 1.
Oops.
It's recommendation 1.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we'll bring forward items I-5 and 6. Anyone? 6-1, yeah. Anyone opposed to varying of the agenda? Hearing and seeing none, that's carried. So we move to item 5, Black Creek Oyster Bay Service Committee minutes from November 16th.
Move receipt.
Thank you. Director Lee?
Move receipt.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
And anyone opposed to receipt of those minutes? Hearing and seeing none, that's carried, and there's a recommendation. Thank you. Seconded by Director Lee. Is there any comments, questions on the recommendation? You have it there before you on your screen, and it's a vote of area C and D. So starting with Director Grieve.
In favor.
Thank you. And Director Lee? In favor. It's unanimous, thank you. And we're on to 6.1, which is the electoral areas minutes from November 16th. Thank you. And Director Lee, do you second?
Actually, I'm not voting on this one. I'm not on the electoral area.
Okay.
So I'm just here to hear how it goes.
Okay.
Could Director Lee speak into the mic? Sorry, we're not hearing.
Can you hear me now? I am not on the Comox Valley Electoral Area Committee, and I don't have a vote on this issue. I am here just because it does affect my area and I want to hear the outcome.
Okay, thank you. So we're on receipt. Is anyone opposed to receipt of the minutes for November 16th? Hearing and seeing none, that's carried. So we're on to recommendation 1. Thank you. Director Hamir, second. And that has to do with the UBCM Emergency Preparedness Fund evacuation route planning. And it is a vote of areas A, B, C. So I will start with Director Arbour. In favor. Director Hamir.
In favor.
In favor. Director Grieve.
In favor.
Great, that's unanimous. Thank you. And on to recommendation 2. Oh, sorry. Yes, we varied the agenda. So back to the beginning. And thank you, Director Lee, for coming tonight. Thank you. You too. So we're back to reports. And the first one is the external appointment report.
Move receipt.
Thank you. And it's correspondence from Director Arbour regarding the Island Corridor Foundation and Vancouver Library for receipt. Director Arbour, do you wish to speak to it?
Sure. I mean, you have my written report, but I would, while Dr. Lee is here, I would like to acknowledge her time the last 2 years as chair of Referral, and the library system's in really good shape. Just for your awareness, this week the board of Referral has sent a letter on to the Premier Minister Dix for consideration of looking at libraries being in the basket of essential services moving forward as they go through the COVID. So we'll hear back from that, but it was a good example of Director Lee or Chair Lee at Referral taking good leadership around such issues. And in the rest of my report, I also report on the Island Corridor Foundation and the 2 big things that happened this year around the court case with the Snada House. And second was the province completing the track assessment. So you'll find all that in my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night. Director Hillian.
Thank you, Chair. I wonder if Dr. Arbour could just speak briefly to the trail issue in relation to the Island Corridor, since I know that that's a subject of a lot of interest to people in the community, given the conflicting visions of the possible future of the rail line.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. And it is a question often heard, of course. So first of all, out of the 220 kilometers of track that are operated in joint Courtney to Victoria, plus the Port Alberni segment, about 110 kilometers of trails already exist. So almost half of the tracks are complemented by trails which regional districts, mostly in the south, have put in. Second, the most material thing that we found from the court case, which tested the right of reversion, linked to the Treaty of Douglas. And so the judge basically said that if it's not used as a rail, it should revert back to First Nations. So the trail option is not for those who would want to see no rail and just a trail along. It would definitely trigger that right of reversion. And I think in the years ahead, the foundation will need to engage with all of its members, both regional district and First Nations, around the meaning of this, around what avenue we would like to pursue. And what is clear too is there's still a lot of appetite around rail. I think in the Capital Regional District, we continue to hear a lot of mayors that are interested in rail being part of the transportation solution, and in the long term to connect the rest of the island. So to be continued, hopefully that answers your question. But as a board member, I continue to encourage regional districts to partner with the ICF around trail development. And
Thanks very much. And I would like to just thank Director Arbor for his ongoing, hopefully continued service in both these functions.
Thank you. Director Cole-Hamilton.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I'd also echo thank you, Director Arbor, for your work on both of these boards. I noticed that you mentioned in the report that you attached to your letter indicated there were 3 possibilities in terms of the rail dimension of the corridor, ranging from kind of high-speed commuter rail in Victoria to a train running the length of the island from Victoria to Courtney. Was there any indication at the board as to which of those 3 directions were likely to be pursued?
I think the foundation has taken the approach to try to get a lot of stakeholder feedback so on what's desired and the level of investment the province would like to consider. Prior to the last election, those never came to final consideration. So the province actually produced the assessment and they did not qualify it. So moving forward, it's up to the communities and mostly the province. It's hard to see regional district and First Nation assemble the kind of capital that is required for those upgrades. But basically where the foundation is amenable to all 3 options and sees value in all 3 or any of them.
Great. Seeing no further questions, thank you so much for your report, Director Arbor. And is there anyone opposed to your receipt? Hearing and seeing none, that's carried. And we're on to item 2, Director's Report 2020 Grant and Aid. I have a first, but I don't have a second.
A second.
Thank you. And we have the request for grant and aid and the receipt of that. Any questions or comments? Oh, Director Arbor.
Yes, thanks to directors and my colleagues at the electoral areas for considering this. And in context, this is the year end for grant and aid basically. And again, I think I was interested in this one particularly because of what the Economic Development Task Force came up with, again, with childcare. You'll remember our investment in Union Bay from last month. And Denman Island is assembling a project. They got $950,000 from the province a while back to build a new childcare center on Denman that will provide 20 new spaces. They have a growing young kid population. And but because, as we know, the construction market has been so crazy, they've been going through lots of cost-cutting exercises. So one that they didn't want to lose is to put on a metal roof and do some water collection and demonstration project. And so they've already raised in the community almost $15,000 from a lot of individuals. And our contribution would round up their needs to make sure that that aspect of the project happens. So I'm definitely in favor if, well, I guess it is before the board now. So I am in favor of the requested action. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone opposed to receipt? Hearing and seeing none, there's a requested action.
Move the requested action.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, I will go through the roll. Director Hamir.
In favor.
Director Arbor. In favor. Director Grieve.
In favor.
Director Hillian.
In favor.
Director Morin.
In favor.
Director McCollum.
In favor.
Director Cole-Hamilton.
In favor.
Director Swift.
In favor.
Thank you. Director Grant.
In favor.
That's unanimous. Thank you. And we're on to item 3, Economic Development Select Committee minutes from November 9th.
Move
Move
receipt.
receipt.
Thank you.
Second.
Any comments or questions about those minutes? Hearing and seeing none, that's carried, and there's a recommendation.
Move the recommendation.
Second.
Thank you. And we have some hands up. Director Hamir.
Thank you, Chair. I was obviously on the select committee when this recommendation came, but I don't recall, staff mentioned an approximate dollar amount that they would have to budget for the financial services to come under CVRD jurisdiction. Do you have our staff there? Would they be able to quote an approximate amount of how much time and/or dollars it would take to bring that service into the RD?
Yeah, I will pass it over to staff.
Thank you, Chair Kettler, and I'll refer this to CFO Mariah Fort to answer.
Thank you, through the chair. So in our preliminary discussions with CVED staff and our review of the financials, their estimate of the cost of the financial services they're currently contracting out is approximately $70,000. And that includes their bookkeeping with an external company, as well as payroll and their audit.
Thank you. Director Cole-Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is probably more appropriately a receipt question, but I was just too slow with my fingers to raise my virtual hand, but I hope I can ask this. I noticed there were one of the recommendations from the committee minutes was regarding clause 13, which is about voting rights for CVRD member directors. And I didn't see that as one of the recommendations. And I was just wondering if someone could clarify that for me, why that's not a recommendation if it was one of the approved resolutions from the committee.
I'll pass it on to staff.
Thank you very much, Chair and Directors. And to answer the question, it is part of the contract. It doesn't require a separate resolution to fulfill that obligation of CVEDs.
Does that mean that we would get that some clarity will be returning to the board in terms of when that will be put into effect, the voting membership?
Yes, I think there's requirements within the contract, but we are working at CVEDs to bring forward a schedule for your confirmation of the deliverables within the contract and when and the status of those.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Sia.
Thank you. Director McCollum.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm not fully understanding what the intention is of the recommendation. Is the intent that the CVRD take over these services and the budget attached to the service is adjusted accordingly, or at least somewhat? I mean, if we're taking over $70,000 worth of financial services, I would assume that there would be at least some savings passed on. Otherwise, it's essentially an increase in what we've agreed to pay. And also, I guess this is a follow-up question, but I would assume that the CVRD would not just need staff time for this, but also have to hire an external auditor, much the same way that the CVED's board is already doing. So I'm not sure if there's an overall saving or efficiency there. So just like a better understanding of what we're contemplating here.
Thank you. And again, I'll pass it to staff.
Yes, and Mariah Fort can respond to that. Thank you.
Thank you. And through the chair, through our liaison committee, and working with the team there and CVED staff, we were looking towards shared services in the contract and looking on taking, what that would look like for our finance staff here at CVRD to take on CVED's financials. However, because we're still sort of in a review process and also with the notice of the service review, we've determined it's for this period through 2021, it's best to essentially continue on the existing contracts that they have for external service providers. So all of the finance activity, including bookkeeping, payroll, and their audit, is currently done by external providers. So what we've recommended is that essentially We maintain the 800,000 for their contract for their economic development and tourism activities. And then within the CVRD budget, we budget and fund the $70,000 of external accounting. And what this allows us to do is to essentially learn their financial activities and their volume over time as we move towards, working through the service review. And then, through this transitional time, just because it takes quite a bit of effort on our CVRD side to understand and learn their accounting systems through our busy year-end period. And it also allows the process of the service review to unfold. And sort of in our discussions with the CVED staff, they're still sort of working through how to manage their budget from their original 1.2 to 800,000. So again, it provides some transitional support for them too, and essentially to work us towards transition and working with them.
That's great. That's very helpful information. Thank you for that. I suppose a follow-up question. Up until recently, I was the Courtney representative at the CVEDS board, and we haven't seen any financial information for some time, nor have we received any timeline on when the CVEDS board will be approving next year's budget. Has there been communication with you or your staff around when the budget is expected to be delivered to the CVRD board?
Again, staff. Great, and thank you to the chair. So in our discussions with CVED staff, they are working through their 2019 financial audit currently. Our understanding that was to be completed by the end of November. So it should be quite shortly. And I believe they're looking to have an AGM in December to review those financials. That was the most recent update we'd received.
Yeah, so sorry, to follow up. Yes, that's the information that I was given as well. But is there no expectation that they provide a budget as well for the upcoming year?
I would imagine that will be part of the work plan process, for which we've provided them input and advice from the strategic planning and the set of priorities that they will be putting their mind to. And that work plan and developing that plan is a contract deliverable that they are required to do this year.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I see no further questions. So I'll put it to the vote. And it's a vote of areas ABC and Courtney Comox. And I'll go through the roll. Director Hamir?
In favor.
Director Arbour? In favor. Director Grieve?
In favor.
Director Hillian?
In favor.
Director Morin?
In favor.
Director McCollum?
In favor.
Director Cole-Hamilton?
In favor.
Director Swift?
In favor.
Thank you. Director Grant?
In favor.
That's unanimous. And we're on to item 4, the Sewage Commission minutes from November 10th.
Move receipt.
Thank you.
Second.
Any further comments or questions about the Sewage Commission minutes? Anyone opposed to receipt? Hearing and seeing none, that's carried. And we have already done I-5 and I-6-1, so we are on to I-6-2. And thank you. And that's approval of the 3-year contract for High C. Any discussion? It's the vote of the full board. I'll go through the roll again. Director Hamir?
In favor.
Director Arbour? In favor. Director Grieve?
In favor.
Director Hillian?
In favor.
Director Morin?
Sorry, in favor.
Thank you. Director McCollum?
In favor.
Director Cole-Hamilton?
In favor.
Director Swift?
In favor.
Director Grant?
In favor.
And that's unanimous. Thank you. And we're on to recommendation 3.
Second.
Thank you. And it's a development variance permit. As you can see on your screen. Is there any comments or questions? Okay, and it's a vote of the areas. Director Hamir,
In favor.
Director Arbor,
In favor, you can leave my mic on, maybe that way they'll
Yes.
hear my vote.
Director Grieve.
In favor.
That's unanimous. Thank you. And we're on to recommendation 4. And again, it's Director Hamir first. Do I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. So it's for a development variance permit for Ships Point Road. And it's a vote of the areas. Director Hamir,
In favor.
Director Arbor,
In favor.
Director Grave.
In favor.
Thank you. Unanimous. And we're on to recommendation 5.
Move that the application be refused.
Second.
Okay, it's the 3L development amendment. And it's a vote of the areas. Director Hamir.
In favor.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Director Arbor wishes to speak.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to acknowledge this is obviously something that's quite tracked in the community, and at the last EASC meeting there was ample discussion, and there's been consideration for the last number of months. I also take note of the delegation today, but speaking to the motion, yeah, I think I heard from my colleagues as well. I'd like to remind people there are 61 parks in the regional district, 25 beach accesses. We have a really full slate, and looking at our strategic plan is very important. I do believe that the existing zoning does allow for forestry, agriculture, gravel, and other extraction consistent with the RGS. But you'll see a subsequent recommendation too in making the decisions that came up to work with the current or future owners around reestablishing access around Stoughton Falls, and that's something that I personally very much support. This being said, in terms of the application itself, I will be voting against. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Grieve.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think there's a lot of misconception around this procedure in that it was only to move it forward for greater discussion with the municipalities. It wasn't a decision point. So I will be supporting keeping the conversation going forward. I think it's very important that we don't lose sight of the goal here. So I will be supporting it, because even though it's not going to go ahead, and I did bring up previously with the presenter that maybe there's other options, you know, as in municipalities kicking in. But right now it's just the electoral areas. So I think that has to be noted by the general public. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Hillian.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to be clear. We've heard directors say they're in favor and they're opposed. The way the recommendation is actually worded, that might be a contradictory indication. And so I just hope that there's some clarity around that for the people who are voting.
Right, it's that the application be refused. That is the recommendation. Okay, are there any further comments or questions? Okay, I will go to the roll. Director Hamir.
In favor of it being refused.
Director Arbor.
In favor of being refused.
Director Grieve.
I am in favor of it being refused at this point.
That's unanimous. Thank you. And we're on to recommendation 6. Thank you. And it's that staff be directed to work with 3L towards securing public access to Stoughton Falls. Again, it's a vote of the areas. Any comments or questions? Okay, Director Hamir.
In favor.
Director Arbor. Director Grieve.
In favor.
And that's unanimous. Thank you. On to recommendation 8. Oh, sorry, I skipped ahead. 7.
Move 7.
Second.
Thank you. And that's that the CVRD participate in the implementation phase of the regional adaptation strategies for BC Agriculture and Food Climate Action Initiative. Director Hamir.
Thank you. I just wanted to speak to this for those of the board who are maybe unfamiliar with this. Within the province of BC, climate adaptation strategies have been developed for every region of the province, and Vancouver Island was one of the last to actually come up with an adaptation strategy. And there was some very extensive consultation with the farming community. There were 3 large meetings held up and down the island. Both the Mid-Island Farmers Institute and the Comox Valley Farmers Institute sent delegates and farmers as well. And a really robust climate adaptation strategy was developed for the entire island. And I really look forward to the first couple of projects that are going to be rolled out that look at pests and pollinators, as well as just basically looking at our water strategies and what crops could be planted here that might benefit from the change in the weather patterns. So thank you to the Regional District for supporting this project.
Thanks for that background. Any further comments or questions? Okay, this is a vote of the full board. I'll go reverse order. Director Grant?
In favor.
Director Swift?
In favor.
Director Cole-Hamilton?
Favor.
Director McCollum?
In favor.
Director Morin?
In favor.
Director Hillian?
In favor.
Director Grieve?
In favor.
Director Arbor? In favor. Director Hamir?
In favor.
That's unanimous. Thank you. And we're on to recommendation 8. Can I have a first and second?
Move the recommendation.
Thank you. And that's for the electoral areas community works funds. Any discussion? Okay, it's a vote of the full board. Director Grant?
In favor.
Director Swift?
In favor.
Director Cole-Hamilton?
In favor.
Director McCollum?
In favor.
Director Morin?
In favor.
Director Hillian?
In favor.
Director Graves?
In favor.
Director Arbor? In favor. Director Hamir?
In favor.
That's unanimous. Thank you. On to recommendation 9.
Moved.
Recommendation.
Second.
Thank you. And that's that staff bring forward a phase 2 public engagement plan for the roadside garbage. Is there any comments or questions? It's a vote of the full board. Director Grant?
In favor.
Director Swift?
In favor.
Director Cole-Hamilton?
In favor.
Director McCollum?
In favor.
Director Morin?
In favor.
Director Hillian?
In favor.
Director Grieve?
In favor.
Director Arbor? In favor. Director Hamir?
In favor.
That's unanimous. Thank you. And we're on to item 7, Integrated Regional Transportation Select Committee minutes from November 16th.
Move receipt.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion of the minutes? Director Hillian?
Thank you, Chair. Small point, but I just wanted to clarify. There's a participant listed as a member of the public named C. Davidson. I believe there's also a Courtney staff member named C. Davidson. I'm not sure if it's the same person or not. Maybe staff could clarify.
Madam Chair, I'll just ask Jake Martins to comment.
Thanks, Russell, and through the chair. Yeah, that is a member of the public, not a Courtney staff member. Catherine Davidson is her name.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Anyone opposed to receipt of the minutes? Seeing and hearing none, that's carried. We're on to item H, Sewage Commission minutes from November 17th.
Move receipt.
Second.
Thank you, Director Grant and Director Paul Hamilton. Is anyone opposed to receipt of those minutes? Seeing and hearing none, that's carried. We're on to item 9, Sports Center Commission minutes from November 17th.
Move receipt.
Second. Second.
Thank you. Grant and Moran. Anyone opposed to those minutes? Hearing and seeing none, that's carried. We're on to item 10, Committee of the Whole minutes for November 17th.
Move receipt.
Grant and Gillian. Thank you. Any discussion of those minutes? Anyone opposed to receipt? That's carried. There's recommendation.
Move the recommendation.
Second.
Okay, that's to support in principle the food hub. Any discussion? Director Hamir?
Thank you. As I look back on the presentation that was made just last week, I'm sad to say that, at the time I understood that there was a deadline and decision had to be made really quickly, and I did vote in favor of it going forward. But we received some letters from the community, particularly Lush Valley, that they were not really involved in the process of putting this food hub application together. And it really saddens me that that they were not included, because if I look back to the original motion from electoral areas, we did specifically ask that CVED's work with the Food Policy Council in Lush Valley to put this proposal together. And I know there was a time crunch and things had to be moving fast, but honestly, in a month, it doesn't take long for emails to be put back and forth. And I just didn't see the proper consultation. And what I fear is that if this application is approved, it's not meeting the needs that Lush Valley really wanted and needed for a food aggregation hub, and something that they so desperately need for their emergency food projects to continue. And I think that's where I think the full board has a lot of support for the work of a food hub, because we see that direct community need. But if funding goes ahead, it will be highly unlikely that another grant will come to this community for a food hub. So I really, I regret that decision to support, because they were obviously not included. And quite frankly, I was a little bit in shock at the poor quality of the presentation. I had no idea how much money I was approving and for what exactly. I don't think I've ever seen in the 2 years I've been on this board a presentation come forward that was so unclear. And I think if it had been any other organization, this board probably would not have given so much leniency. And so for those reasons, I'm sad to say I hate being opposed to a food security related grant, but I can't support this recommendation going forward.
Thank you, Director Grieve.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, there was a very tight timeline on this. We all know that. We did have a meeting where Marita and another member of Lush turned up at the Merville Hall, along with representatives from CVEDS and the Comox Valley Farmers Institute, plus the Hall Association. And it was discussed that their needs were more along the aggregation distribution side, Whereas I think that the producers were more oriented towards prep and primary processing. So it's not perfect. It never is perfect. But the problem sometimes in the Comox Valley is that we tend to forget that whatever benefits any particular segment of the population and any particular area benefits everybody. So I would say, don't turn your back on this. We need to support it. There was a time when, if you're asked to write a letter of support, say, for Cumberland's CRI hall, you wrote a letter of support. It's very saddening for me to see that actually there is a campaign out there to just nip this thing at the bud, when in actuality, it's going to benefit everybody. It may not be perfect. It may not be what everybody had in their own particular wish list, but still, being said, it could move this whole thing forward and make better food security available for the Comox Valley and beyond, and also support the producers themselves. It's mostly producer oriented, I agree. And Lush Valley have a very peculiar and particular niche in this, and it's definitely recognized, and I think they do a great job. But let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's move forward on this. Thank you very much.
Director Arbour.
Yes, thanks. On this topic, I find myself generally agreeing with Director Grief's comments. I've been involved in many grants, and there's so many different organizations. But I think it's going to take more than one project to attain our ambitions around food security and increasing farmland and viability in the valley. The application is ready. There will be a review board that will look at the level of support and all those things. So at this point, I would say let's just send it forward and see what comes back when the grant body looks at it.
Director Morin.
Great, thank you, Chair. As a member of the Food Policy Council, I agree with many of Director Hamir's comments. It wasn't just Lush Valley we received feedback from. We did receive feedback from the Mid-Island Farmers Institute, which represents numerous smaller scale producers who also are not in favor of this. So there's many stakeholders who actually don't agree with this. Now, there was another proposal put in for 900 and something thousand, which is amazing and great, and it would address, if that proposal was successful, it would address the commercial kitchen upgrades at Merville and could fulfill some other needs. But in terms of a food hub, I've been learning a lot about food hubs from being on the Food Policy Council, and I would have liked to have seen some research about food hubs that was more pertinent to the more diverse needs of the community, and use the expertise of the Food Policy Council. And it was on October 5th, the electoral meeting, where the motion was passed for the Food Policy Council to be collaborated with, and that did not seem to happen in a fulsome way. So I too am not going to support this recommendation, and improving a kitchen is great and needed and very needed for a rural community, but it's not meeting the needs of an actual food hub like in many other areas, and on the island and beyond that I believe many producers, as well as those in our food security groups, also would support. And just to also note that Lush not only addresses food security, but also has partnered with many local producers to actually help them earn money, so to improve economic development. So I'm disappointed that there wasn't the collaboration that I would expect with a proposal like this, and I would not want us to miss out on a properly done proposal in future. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Hillian.
Thank you, Chair. The resolution offers support in principle, subject to further dialogue between staff and CVEDs. I'm just wondering if staff could clarify for us if that further dialogue is what is contained in the report relative to the item in the addendum, and whether these two resolutions are essentially the same.
Chair, I can clarify. Yes, item L2 in the late items is additional information that is a follow-up to this resolution. So I wouldn't concern yourself too much about this recommendation, and but I would definitely save this debate and discussion for the consideration of L2, which will be a recommendation to provide support or not if you do not, based on the additional information that has been provided to clarify these things. And I'd just like to mention one tiny but very important criteria that the Ministry of Agriculture has to their support of the food hub. And they provided us this potential opportunity on November the 4th to be responded to by November the 18th. With the ability for you to follow up with this resolution. That important piece of information is, and it was indicated to us at UBCM by the minister, the ministry does not fund the acquisition or development of property or buildings for the food hub. The local community has to come forward with a property or a building for which they will help to outfit and prepare that to be a food hub. So a very important component of the Merville Hall proposal is the fact that it is an existing structure that can be utilized or modified. We would have had, if that was not the perfect opportunity for this, we would have had to come up with another facility in a very short time.
Thanks very much for that clarification. So this recommendation is essentially redundant, and the primary debate should take place later on in the agenda, I think.
Thank you. There's just a correction to the voting on this recommendation. It says all, but it's actually a weighted vote of the areas and Courtney Comox. No Cumberland. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll go through the roll. Dr. Hamir.
Well, thanks to the clarification, then I can support this recommendation.
Thank you. Director Arbour? In favor. Director Grieve?
In favor.
In favor. Director Hillian?
In favor.
Director Moran?
In light of the further discussion down the road, in favor, thanks.
Thank you. Director McCollum?
In favor.
Director Cole-Hamilton?
In favor.
Director Swift?
In favor.
Director Grant?
In favor.
That's unanimous. Thank you. And we're on to recommendation 2.
Move to.
Director Arbour, Director Grant. Okay, it's regard to financial plan and capital expenditure program for the RGS. Are there any questions? Director Hillian, is your hand up from the previous discussion?
Yes, my apologies.
Okay, no problem. Okay, this is a vote of the full board. Go through the roll. Director Hamir.
In favor.
Director Arbour. In favor. Director Grieve.
In favor.
Director Hillian.
In favor.
Director Moran.
In favor.
Director McCollum.
In favor.
Director Cole-Hamilton.
In favor.
Director Swift.
In favor.
Director Grant.
In favor.
That's unanimous. Thank you. On to recommendation 3.
Move 3.
Second.
McCollum and Grant. And that's a recommendation around the financial plan and capital expenditure program for the RGS as well. $50,000 in 2020 and $50,000 in 2021 for the poverty reduction strategy. Is there any discussion? It's a vote of the full board. I'll go through the roll, reverse order this time to make it interesting. Director Grant,
Favor.
Director Swift,
In favor.
Director Cole Hamilton,
In favor.
Director McCollum,
In favor.
Director Moran,
In favor.
Director Hillian,
In favor.
Director Grave,
In favor.
Director Arbor, in favor, Director Hamir,
In favor.
in favor. That's unanimous. Thank you. On to recommendation 4. Director Arbor and someone.
Second.
Director Grieve, thank you. And this recommendation is again around the RGS, 40,000 in 2020 with electric vehicle charging stations. Any comments or questions? Director Hillian.
Thank you, Chair. It occurs to me that somebody tuning in for the first time might wonder why many of these resolutions are being passed without debate. And so I just wanted to clarify that these have all been debated at the Committee of the Whole, which is part of the public record. Thank you.
Yep, thank you for that clarification. Any further comments, questions? Okay, vote of the full board. Director Grant.
In favor.
Director Swift.
In favor.
Director Cole Hamilton.
In favor.
Director McCollum.
In favor.
Director Moran.
In favor.
Director Hillian.
In favor.
Director Grave.
Favor.
Director Arbor. In favor. Director Mayor.
In favor.
Thank you. Again, that's unanimous. On to recommendation 5.
Move.
Second.
Director Grieve, Director Hillian, thank you. This is for the expenditure around the electoral areas planning service, $150,000 for the coastal flood mapping strategy. This is where we had received the UBCM grant for the same amount. Any discussion? Okay, it's a vote of the areas. Director Grave.
Favor.
Director Arbor. In favor. Director Hamir.
In favor.
That's unanimous. Thank you. And there is a CAO recommendation.
Move the recommendation.
Second.
Thank you. And that's from the CVRD writing a letter of support for the Strathcona Regional District for the Connected Coast Project. Director Arbor.
Yes, thank you. And there was a great presentation at Committee of the Whole. Our CEO just left, but I'll wait for him to come back for my question. Thank you. I think I made a mention on this one to maybe add some specificity around the potential to just explore well, again, saying the same word, the potential for landing sites at Hornby and Denman. So I'm wondering if that wording could be included in the recommendation, just because I think initially it wasn't necessarily going to be considered. So I don't know if CEO feels that we should do that or whether it'll move forward anyways.
Madam Chair and Directors, I suggest keeping this resolution to what it is. This is probably going to be used by the Regional District for approvals or grants or other things. They have already reached out to us and we will confirm a continued conversation with respect to landing sites on Hornby and Denman and make sure that work continues.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? This is the vote of the full board. Director Hamir.
In favor.
Director Arbor. In favor. Director Grieve.
Favor.
Director Hillian.
In favor.
Director Moran.
In favor.
Director McCollum.
In favor.
Director Cole Hamilton.
In favor.
Director Swift.
In favor.
Director Grant.
In favor.
That's unanimous. Thank you. On to item 11, service review initiation for the CVEDs.
Move receipt.
Thank you. Director Hillian, Director Arbor.
And Madam Chair, I'll introduce Jake Martins, General Manager of Corporate Services, who wrote this report to make a brief presentation and answer any of the board's questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This report has been prepared following the initiation of a formal service review by the town of Comox of the Comox Valley Economic Development Service. Formal service reviews are guided by provincial legislation to help regional districts and their service partners review the terms and conditions of the various service arrangements. The process provides for the formation of participant representatives to review the service issues and seek resolution through negotiation. While the provincial minister may appoint facilitators to support the process, staff are recommending that CVRD engage such services as a decision from the minister is not forthcoming within the specified timeframes. Given the current economic conditions, an expedited process is recommended either through the statutory review process or through an early termination of the process and amendment to the service establishment bylaw. This latter option is only recommended if the parties believe the issues and solutions can be readily identified and agreed to. Staff are recommending the preliminary meeting be set for January the 19th, 2021 to explore the options and the interests of the parties. And with that, I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Are there any questions to staff? Director Grant.
Just wondering why the date of January 19th and why it couldn't be sooner.
Thanks, through the chair. Our intention is to engage a facilitator and then to start to prepare the materials that will support that preliminary meeting. So we want to provide ourselves with adequate time to ensure that we're able to provide a foundation of good information to support that meeting, as it's quite pivotal in the process.
Any further questions? Okay, we're on receipt. Anyone opposed to receipt? Hearing and seeing none, that's carried. There's a recommendation.
Moved.
Director Grant, Director Arbor, and Director Hillian, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm just wondering if staff could clarify the extent of information that would come to the service participants in the request to appoint a representative, specifically with regards to the final clause in the recommendation, and just how specific the intent is for participants to be in that regard.
I'll turn it over to staff.
Yeah, thanks. And I'll just, I'm just looking here at the final clause of the recommendation there, which provides for the alternative structure and process. And so I think that's again where staff are going to be looking to work with the consultant or facilitator. They will be able to engage with the participating members or their representatives to be able to identify some of those background issues that are seeking to be explored through the process, and if there's any possible, I suppose, expedited solutions that can be identified to bring forward.
And Madam Chair, I'll just add too, I think it's very important for the 3 CAOs that oversee the service on behalf of their organizations, Courtney, Comox, and myself, that given this is a pandemic, and given that the formal process of a service review can be quite lengthy, time and resource consuming, we would like to consider whether there are very specific changes that could be agreed upon by the group, those that participate in the service, very early in the process, as opposed to a longer, more lengthy. It's trying to come up with an alternative that may seek change that serves all the participants, that can be done on a very timely basis. So I will work with the other 2 CAOs to bring forward some suggestions and ideas that can be considered by all of the participants in advance of that meeting on January the 19th. So that's another reason for January the 19th is an important date. It gives us a little time to invest in advance to make this a very efficient process, as opposed to rushing into it in the beginning.
Thanks, that's very helpful.
Director Grieve.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering through to staff that the electoral areas are not really being represented here. And we participate as 3 distinct electoral areas and probably contribute as much financially as our largest municipality. So wouldn't it be more appropriate to have participation from the 3 electoral areas individually?
Over to staff.
Thanks through the chair. Yes, the electoral areas are formal participants in the service, and they will be represented in the body that explores this review. The resolution or the recommendation that is put before you names the city of Courtney and the town of Comox as their council may appoint an individual councillor to represent them. And if no appointment's made, then the mayor is automatically representative. In the case of the electoral areas, it's the director, and that's outlined in the act.
Okay, any further comments or questions? All right, this is a vote of the electoral areas and Courtney and Comox. And I'll go through the roll. Director Hamir?
In favor.
Director Arbor? In favor. Director Grieve?
In favor?
Director Hillian?
In favor.
Director Morin?
In favor.
Director McCollum?
In favor.
Director Cole-Hamilton?
In favor.
Director Swift?
In favor.
Director Grant?
Favor.
Thank you, that's unanimous. And we're on to recommendation 2. Director Arbor?
Move the recommendation.
Director Hillian?
Second.
And the recommendation 2 is around the chief administrative officer in consultation and engaging a facilitator for the statutory review process. Any comments or questions? Director Arbor?
Yeah, thanks. We're definitely, it's been a year of multiple processes against around this particular service. I think that's an understatement. I heard that the Economic Development Society may recruit the same facilitator that we used here for their own in-house contemplations. Are we looking at potentially at that person as well? Because that person is starting to fill a number of roles across multiple processes. And I'm just wondering if there's any thoughts given to that.
It's early yet. We haven't kicked around any names or suggestions, but we will be looking for somebody that's familiar with our service, but also is strong on the service review process and has experience with service reviews.
Any further comments or questions? Okay, again, it's a vote of the areas and Courtney Comox. Director Grant?
In favor.
Director Swift?
In favor.
Director Cole-Hamilton?
In favor.
Director McCollum?
In favor.
Director Morin?
In favor.
Director Hillian?
In favor.
Director Grieve?
Favor?
Director Arbor? Opposed? Director Hamir?
In favor.
In favor. Thank you. That passes. And we're on to item 12, the Economic Development Task Force recommendations.
Move receipt.
Move receipt.
Thank you. And I'll pass it over to staff.
Thank you very much, Chair and Directors. What you see before you is a referral from the Economic Development Task Force that was presented to the electoral area directors along at one of their meetings along with a letter. And this is being brought forward to the full board because I think many of these recommendations will have relevance not just to electoral area services, but other services that are managed by various committees and commissions of the full board. This is a draft document. I feel it is very important that we demonstrate to the many individuals that have been involved in this process to date and bringing forward these ideas that the regional district is taking these matters seriously and is giving due consideration to them. I also feel it's important that I inform you of that and how things are coming along. This is a first kick of the can in terms of staff looking at the various initiatives and how they may be developed or considered. It is a working document, and again, it is a draft. I felt it was also important that if there are some quick actions that the board could take, that we bring those forward to you. So a resolution is provided for your consideration that would be the items pulled from that report that speak to the lobbying efforts that you might make to the province, federal government, and UBCM. And so the resolution identifies the topics for which we will bring forward ideas and suggestions if you adopt this on the basis of the sector input. It is also suggested that the more fulsome recommendations for consideration of the board we will bring forward to you in reports through the budget process or in advance of that process where we can bring forward ideas and suggestions to move forward. So this is a working document. It is meant as an update for you, but also enables you to take some action on the lobbying efforts that your community, the economic driving force of this community, have recommended for this regional district to undertake.
Thank you. Director Arbor?
Yes, thank you. And I certainly have appreciated the work of the task force and the recommendations brought forward. It's nice to see a couple on childcare, on the internet. So, I mean, even though I wasn't involved with the group, a lot of the recommendations really resonate with what's happening in Area A. The only one that I struggle with, just as feedback, I'm not sure if it'll kill my vote on this, but I think many members of my community would be quite concerned with the one recommendation to consider support for international tourism as it applies to international education. I think we're still a ways away from considering international tourism, and I'm wondering why the tourism sector prioritized this over continued effort around Vancouver Island-based tourism and closer to home tourism.
Chair, I might just note that of all the recommendations, this is one I think we make mention of, that further information may be required to put together this proposal. If you would like to suggest an altered recommendation that excludes that one for this time, pending more information coming further forward, staff are definitely intent on getting more information on that particular item for you.
Yeah, and that item did come out of the survey around from North Island College, and finding a way to safely have international students here was part of that recommendation. Director Hamir?
Yeah, I first of all just want to thank staff for going through and combing through all of the dozens of recommendations that were put forward by the task force, and also to thank the task force for their time and all the sectors who put in all the energy and just thought on how to move forward. My question is more around how these recommendations coming from the CVRD, what is the interplay with the other CAOs or the other municipalities? Is this going forward with their sign on as well as, or how are you coordinating with the other municipalities?
Madam Chair, each of the municipalities received a letter from the Economic Task Force with priorities for their consideration. So there's recommendations for Courtney, Cumberland, and Comox, separate and distinct, and some of which are common with us. We will continue to work with those that are common. There's some information regarding tax relief or otherwise that we see the opportunity for a coordinated effort on responding to those. So definitely we'll do that. The CAOs are meeting every 2 weeks, and a standing item on those meetings is the Economic Recovery Task Force, and just an update. So we're keeping informed of each other's consideration of this. And my understanding is that response from the various municipalities will be coming forward to their various councils if it hasn't already.
Okay, and will those, sorry if I can have a further question, will those responses also be communicated to us? It would just be nice to know who's doing what, so where to put the advocacy.
Madam Chair, I can bring that forward to the CAOs as a suggestion, yes.
Great, thank you.
Director Arbor.
Yeah, thank you. Just a second time at the mic here, but yeah, I just wanted to follow up on the CEO's comment that I support waiting for further information on this. I think Chair Kettler explained a little more around the international education, but for the next year or two, what I've seen around the world is education facilities like really emphasizing online learning and things like that. And I think there would be concerns in our community if we start doing a big push to attract international tourism or international students here in the next couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you. And we are still on receipt. Is there anyone opposed to receipt? Hearing and seeing none, that passes, and there's a recommendation. Was that Director Grant?
It was.
Thank you. And seconded by Director Arbor. Any further discussion? And that recommendation was with the exclusion of the consideration of support for international tourism. Is that your wish as well, Director Grant?
Well, I thought we were getting more information on that.
Yes, we're having that come back.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, any further discussion? Again, it's a vote of the areas. Courtney Comox. I'll go through the roll. Director Grant.
In favor.
Director Swift.
In favor.
Director Cole Hamilton.
Favor?
Director McCollum.
In favor.
Director Moran.
In favor.
Director Hilliard.
In favor.
Director Grieve.
Favor.
Director Arbor. In favor. Director Mayor.
In favor.
That's unanimous. Thank you. We are on to item 13, the Board Code of Conduct Policy Review.
Move receipt.
Second.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, the policy guru, Jake Martins, is here to provide a brief summary of his report and answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the directors will recall, the board adopted the Code of Conduct policy back in August of this year, so it's still fairly fresh. The policy provides a set of guidelines of responsible conduct in support of the existing legislative framework. Matters covered under the policy include general conduct of directors, conflicts of interest, meeting decorum, use of public resources, gifts, communication, and the role of the board. As the policy is self-enforcing, an annual review is stipulated to provide an opportunity for the board to reflect on the policy and their actions over the past year. It's noted that an informal workshop was conducted recently on the policy, and that this, together with its recent adoption, may mean limited reflection is needed at this time, but nonetheless, the opportunity is presented for you to consider.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Director Grieve.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Jake, for itemizing all these things. I think I had my worries about impinging freedom of speech, and I think it's being addressed. I think all the stuff is pretty straightforward right now. But I always caution that free expression is a very important part of our democracy, and we have to protect it at all costs. Obviously, there's limits to everything, and I think that, we've taken out such things as a tone of voice, because there isn't a tone of voice yardstick out there. So I just thank you very much for making it make a little more common sense than it did initially.
Thank you. And this is just for receipt. Is there anyone opposed to receipt? And that passes. Thank you, Jake. I've been requested to give us a 5-minute break. Is everyone online okay with that?
That's fine.
Okay, we'll be back at 5:55.
Is Doug in the room?
What was your question?
Is Doug DeMarzo there?
He's on the phone. He's on the
is he
phone.
Oh, okay. I'm getting buzzed from all my hockey guys wondering if we have hockey tonight because they came up with some new new regulations. So I wanted to get it from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, you still have hockey tonight.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Doug. I'll pass that along.
I can add that a lot of other stuff has been closed on our rec programming now.
Yeah.
Including drop-in CVRD hockey for this.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hey, kids. Nothing quiet, I'm not unmuted.
Okay, we're back. Are we back? Thank you. All right, we left off at bylaws and resolutions for first, second, and third reading and adoption. Item 1 is the recommendation for bylaw 628, grant review anticipation borrowing bylaw, amendment 1.
Move first and second reading.
Thank you, Elaine and Arbor. And it's a vote of the full board. Is there anyone opposed to first and second reading? Hearing and seeing none, that's carried.
Second.
Director Arbor and Hillian move third reading. Again, vote of the full board. Is there anyone opposed to moving third reading? Hearing and seeing none, that's carried.
Move adoption.
Director Hamir and Arbor for final adoption. The vote of the full board. Anyone opposed to adoption? And that's carried. And we're on to item 2. It's bylaw number 604, Rural Comox Valley Official Community Plan Bylaw Amendment number 5. Can I get a second?
Second.
Director Arbor and Mccollum. And it's a vote of the areas. I'll just go through the roll for that one. Director Hamir.
In favor.
Director Arbor. In favor. Director Grieve.
Favor.
In favor. That's unanimous. And we're on to item 3. And it's bylaw 625, Comox Valley Electoral Areas Animal Control Bylaw, Amendment number 1.
Move adoption.
And that's Arbor and Hamir for adoption. Director Hamir.
Sorry,
In favor? Thank you. Director Arbor. In favor. Director Reeve.
In favor.
In favor. That's unanimous. Thank you. And we're on to item 4, bylaw number 626, Electoral Areas Noise Control Regulation Bylaw, Amendment number 1 for adoption.
Second.
Arbor and Hamir. Director Hamir.
In favor.
Director Arbor. In favor. And Director Grieve.
In favor.
That's unanimous. Thank you. And item 5, bylaw number 627, Comox Valley Regional District Municipal Ticket Information Bylaw, Amendment number 19.
Second.
Arbor and Hamir. Again, the vote of the areas. Director Hamir.
In favor.
Director Arbor. In favor. Director Grieve.
In favor.
And that's unanimous. Thank you. We're on to new business. And the first item is Vancouver Island Regional Library Board 2021 appointments.
Move receipt.
Thank you. And it's a receipt of correspondence and requesting the appointments. Is there anyone opposed to receipt of the letter? Hearing and seeing none, that's carried, and there's a requested action.
I'll move that Director Arbor be appointed as the electoral area director.
Second.
Okay. Director Grieve. Director Arbor's nominated Director Grieve as the alternate. Director Grieve, do you have comment?
No, that's fine. Thank you very much. I'll lower my hand.
Okay. So the appointment as member is Director Arbor and as alternate is Director Grieve. Is there any further conversation? Okay, it's a vote of the full board. Starting with Director Hamir.
In favor.
Director Arbor. In favor. Director Grieve.
Favor.
Director Hillian.
In favor.
Director Moran.
In favor.
Director Mccollum.
In favor.
Director Cole Hamilton.
In favor.
Director Swift.
In favor.
Director Grant.
In favor.
That's unanimous. Congratulations to you both. And we're on to the addendum. And
Move that the addendum be considered.
thank you, Hillian and Arbor. Is there anyone opposed to the addendum being considered? Hearing and seeing none, that's carried. And we're on to item 1, Electoral Areas Service Committee from November 23rd minutes.
Move receipt.
Second.
Grant and Grieve. Any discussion around those minutes? Anyone opposed to receipt of the minutes? Hearing and seeing none, that's carried. There's recommendation 1. Can I get a second?
Second.
Arbor and Hamir. And it's a vote of the areas about restructuring of the regulatory service. Any discussion? Okay, go to the roll. Director Hamir.
In favor.
Director Arbor. In favor. Director Grave.
In favor.
That's unanimous. On to recommendation 2.
Move to.
Grant and Arbor. And this recommendation is about rice and water supply agreement. Is there any further discussion? And it's a vote of the full board. I'll go through the roll. Director Hamir.
In favor.
Director Arbor. In favor. Director Grave.
In favor.
Director Hillian.
In favor.
Director Moran.
In favor.
Director McCollum.
In favor.
Director Cole Hamilton.
In favor.
Director Swift.
In favor.
Director Grant.
In favor.
That's unanimous. Thank you. And we are on to recommendation 3. Can I get a second?
Second.
Arbor and Grant, thank you. And this recommendation is about 2021 water service agreement, Grand Lake Improvement District. Is there any discussion? Okay, so vote of the full board. Director Grant.
In favor.
Director Swift.
In favor.
Director Cole Hamilton.
In favor.
Director McCollum.
In favor.
Director Moran.
In favor.
Director Hillian.
In favor.
Director Grieve.
In favor.
Director Arbor. In favor. Director Hamir.
In favor.
That's unanimous. Thank you. On to recommendation 4.
Second.
Arbor and Grieve. And that's the board approved the concept of the singular alternative approval process. Royal Cumberland Fire requisition increase, electoral areas, community hall service, and Saratoga pest management service. Any further discussion? It's a vote of the full board. Director Hamir.
In favor.
Director Arbor. Director Grieve.
In favor.
Director Hillian.
In favor.
Director Moran.
In favor.
Director McCollum.
In favor.
Director Cole Hamilton.
In favor.
Director Swift.
In favor.
Director Grant.
In favor.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Move recommendation 5.
Hillian and Arbor, thank you. And that's around the CVRD's commitment to work with Comox First Nation on the Royston Union Bay Sewer Extension Project. Director Arbor.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to draw particular attention to this recommendation, which came through the ESC about 28 hours ago, but there's been a lot of consideration given. So this is for the board to reaffirm that our commitment as part of our reconciliation effort with Comox First Nation around the intent to bring servicing to the Southlands. And the board is aware that we do have a grant application, but this envisions this, whatever happens to this grant application, we obviously hope that we get it. It's probably the best opportunity to get it now, but if we didn't, that we would reaffirm our commitment to continue to work with Comox First Nation on this project as they see it as a priority, and certainly in Area A, we see it as a priority as well. So I hope the board gives this good consideration prior to your vote, and I encourage you to fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you for the background. Any further discussion? Okay, it's a vote of the full board. Start with Director Grant.
In favor.
Director Swift.
In favor.
Dr. Cole Hamilton,
In favor?
Dr. McCollum,
In favor.
Dr. Moran,
In favor.
Dr. Hillian,
In favor?
Dr. Grieve,
Favor?
Dr. Arbor, in favor, Dr. Hamir.
In favor.
That's unanimous. Thank you. On to recommendation 6.
Second?
Thank you, Arbor and Hillian. And this recommendation is around the electoral area's emergency program service in the Oyster River Fire Hall. Is there any further discussion? This is a vote of just the areas. Director Grieve,
In favor?
Director Arbor, in favor, Director Hamir.
In favor.
It's unanimous. Thank you. And we're on to recommendation 7. Can I get a second? Arbor and Hamir. And Director Arbor would like to speak to this.
Yeah, I have to speak to this because this was a bit of a grassroots one for us. We had some constituents reach out to us to look at chickens in backyards. And I want to thank staff for their work in looking at reviewing what other municipalities, including, Cumberland and Courtney, are working on it. So really excited to see that we'll make it possible for everybody in the rural areas to have chickens. Food security is a huge issue right now and a lot of interest in the community. So I'm really happy to see this move forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Director Hamir.
I'm just going to agree with everything that Director Arbor just said and add that it would be even more fantastic if the regional district was the first one to amend their bylaws before the municipality. So not that, competition is always a good thing, but I just want to note that the other municipalities are also looking at this and love the fact that, we'll hopefully be aligned. And if the CVRD is first, then, can provide maybe some leadership in the way that the wording is done. So thank you to staff for all of their work.
Well, just to get a dig in, Cumberland did pass it, I think, 2
Yes, we
years
did.
ago.
We have lots to learn from Cumberland, so thank you.
Director Grieve.
Well, let it never be said that the electoral areas is chicken and we're not going to egg on the municipalities.
Wah, wah. Okay, we must be at the end of our agenda here. So this is a vote of the electoral areas. We'll start with Director Grieve.
In favor?
Thank you. Director Arbor. In favor. Director Hamir.
Very much in favor.
And that's unanimous. Thank you so much. And we will move in camera. Oh,
We've got the
there's
food hub.
more. I don't have this one on my printout.
Move receipt.
Thank you. This is around the Ministry of Agriculture's Food Hub grant application. And I'll pass it over to staff.
Thank you very much, Chair and Directors. And so you previously began to discuss this, and this is the report that brings forward a little bit more information as requested in consideration of the potential of adopting a resolution in support. Scott Smith will just give a brief outline and we'll try to answer any of your questions that you may have. Thank you.
Director Hamir and Grieve, you both have your hands up. Is that from the previous discussion or would you like to speak?
I was going to speak, but I'm happy to wait for staff first.
Okay. Scott Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just try and give a brief update to the board. So as the board may be aware, the CVRD and CVEDs did apply to the Community Economic Recovery Infrastructure Program for Rural Community Food Hub in October for the Myrtle Hall Community Association, and that was in an amount of $978,301. The Ministry of Agriculture then reached out to CVEDs in early November as they were a previous food hub applicant and indicated that there was another potential food hub grant opportunity with a very tight timeline. CVEDs then did attend the November 17th Committee of the Whole meeting to give a brief presentation to the board. CVET staff has been in communication with SERP, the first grant application, and the Ministry of Agricultural to make them aware of the two what was being proposed, and they were encouraged to apply for both programs. The application that went into the Ministry of Environment or Ministry of Agricultural application took the Merville Hall application and then focused primarily on the components of the commercial kitchen equipment, but also the food safety, septic upgrades, gas, interior and venting renovations for a total cost of $576,340. So that's a bit of an update in that regard. The Ministry of Agriculture application and the SERP application would require for the CVRD to enter into an operating agreement for a rural community food hub if either grant was successful. If we were successful with the Ministry of Agricultural grant, that would reduce the amount equal to what we would ask for the SERP grant. So essentially, we're taking the same project. There's two very short-term grant opportunities here that potentially make the opportunity to have this project potentially more viable. Our understanding is that the SERP grant was heavily subscribed. And I'd be pleased to try and answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. We'll start with Director Graves.
Thank you so much, Scott, for spelling it all out to us. I think too often this district gives back millions of dollars in grant funding because we can't seem to get on the same page. Is it perfect? Of course it's not perfect. Was there any intent of leaving Lush Valley out of the conversation? No. But I think it's been reiterated time and time again that the time restraints on this were extremely tight. I think anybody out there that came into this this endeavor through nonprofit societies knows how valuable grant funding is. When you try to take the criteria for a grant and morph your programs around it so it looks like it's matching the criteria, you're grateful to get any money at all that comes down the pipe. That's why we have to look at this in a holistic manner. Whatever benefits one area is going to benefit all the areas. As I said, it's definitely not perfect, but it's a start. It's a really big start. And those of us that are thinking that the big pipeline of grant funding is going to keep coming forever, better shake your heads with the amount of budget shortfalls that are going to be occurring at the federal and provincial level. I'd be surprised to see very much coming down the line for infrastructure or any other artistic endeavor or even something like this. So, you know, we have to take advantage of it. We have to speak with one voice. I think we have to realize that the Comox Valley is the team we're playing for here. We're not playing for Area C or Area B or Cumberland. We're playing here for the Comox Valley, and we have to pull together. We have to present some kind of united front on this, because as you know, government is very adverse to any kind of conflict. And if we're going to go out there and actively campaign against a grant funding opportunity, I think we better give our heads a shake, because we're entering in a whole new area, and this would be valuable. In the future, we can take these things and make them even better. We've got a whole bunch of initiatives going forward next year around social initiatives that we can certainly benefit from having a food hub in the center of the agricultural community of the Comox Valley. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Hamir.
Thank you, and thanks to staff for making this or putting this report together. It certainly clarified what was being applied for and for how much, and the fact that you were able to contact SERP and make sure that we weren't double dipping. That really allayed some fears of mine. There is still, however, one that hasn't been addressed, and I'm just going to ask staff, because one of the points in the executive summary is around the kitchen being HACCP certified. And if staff could just clarify that that is what we are building, or that's what this application is moving towards, that a kitchen would be HACCP certifiable.
To staff, Scott Smith.
Thank you, through the chair. So my understanding of the grant application is that it must be eligible to be HACCP certified. Doesn't mean that it necessarily has to be to that level, but it must be capable and eligible to be done that. And that as part of the application, there's a group or a company called Food Metrics Laboratory that has agreed to assist with the food safety plan for the entire facility. And certainly if the grant is successful, that would probably be, a key component of whatever the operating agreement is, that would be a key component of any operating agreement that the CVRD and the Merville Hall Association would need to consider.
Sure. Thanks for that. And I totally agree that using our local food metrics lab would make sense, because they are one of the, the capacity there to do food safety plans. There's the expertise is there. However, I do want to come back to the presentation that was made last week, because when I asked the Merville Hall Association and CVEDs at the time, they assured me that they were not applying for HACCP certification, and that they didn't have to worry about the multi-use of the Merville Hall. And I think this really contradicts the Hall's assumption of what they are and aren't going to be able to do moving forward if a kitchen like this is installed. I don't know if anybody sat down with them and told them that, these types of rentals will no longer be allowed unless there is a food safety plan in place. And very few weddings, for example, or just rentals from the community have that type of expertise. So this is where, I understand, Director Grieve, that, we're really looking at these types of grants, but this is where it's so important to have had those previous relationships in the community, so that these types of projects going forward could have been ready. And if Lush Valley had been connected with at the time that we did our UBCM presentation back in June, we could have had something ready for this type of application going forward. I have one other question for staff, if Chair will allow me. Are there any other sites that staff can consider going forward within the CVRD that could potentially be a food hub in the future? Are staff connecting with Lush Valley to talk about potential other buildings or sites that are available?
I can't say that we have the knowledge as to whether there are other sites for qualifying for a food hub, but I can confirm that staff are working and discussing with Lush the potential opportunities that we may have on the properties that we own for their needs for food aggregation or otherwise. So there was a meeting of our staff and Lush I think it was yesterday. And so those discussions are ongoing. That we have been dealing with them with respect to trying to meet their immediate needs, but also looking at mid to long-term options for them as well.
Okay, thank you. And, just to maybe allay some of the fears that Director Grieve may have put forward, this is, my understanding, is the third round of food hub funding. And food hubs are particularly a project that the Ministry of Agriculture within this government sees as a necessary piece of infrastructure for all rural communities. And looking at the type of funding that is coming federally, it is almost entirely infrastructure related. And so I don't see an end to that type of funding. I think this will come again next year, as it has for the last 3 years. And so if we don't support it, I don't think this is going to be our last kick at the can. I think, in fact, we can use the experience that we've had putting this application together and put forward an even stronger one next year.
Thank you. Director Morin.
Great, thank you, Chair. Several of the points I was going to make have been made, and one of them was around the HACCP, because I did notice from the report from the Committee of the Whole that it did say not to exceed 500,000 unless HACCP is met. So that's a little bit different from what was expressed tonight. So this proposal is over 500,000, and I mean, this is something that I did bring up at the first discussion, which was around how you can combine a community hall with a food hub with the HACCP certification or whatever. I mean, it just doesn't seem to fit. And I guess just in terms of throwing paint at the wall, I think is great. But I also know I've myself have applied for many grants and have been successful in my line of work. And what we're often told by funders is that they want the collaboration up front. They don't want it after the fact. They want to see that the partnerships are there before the application is put in. And so I mean, it was a recommendation to collaborate with the Food Policy Council, and this is part of the strategic vision for the Food Policy Council, which is made up of more than just Lush. It's made up of many groups and individuals and representatives. So I'm concerned about, the HACCP certification and this going over that threshold. So that would mean that those health and safety, that more stringent health and safety issues would need to be met. And also, just for clarification, my understanding is this is the Regional Food Processing and Innovation Hub, not the other one was the first one, the 978, was the Rural Community Food Hub. This one is the Regional Food Processing and Innovation Hub. So I see that as a different stream. Although I appreciate that the ministry did say that it could go under this. But again, I just don't think that the Regional Food Hub idea has been fleshed out, and the collaboration hasn't happened. And I would like to see something go forward that really took that into account. And I do appreciate the information about the existing building, but we have a lot of existing buildings that we could explore. And I don't think that just rushing an application is the way to go here. So I haven't changed my my stance from earlier on. Thank you.
Thank you. Director McCollum.
Thank you, Chair. Looking through this, I can certainly appreciate what's trying to be accomplished here. I went back and pulled out the correspondence that was received by Economic Development, and the timelines for this letter is dated November 4th with a deadline of November 18th for a submission. So it's certainly understandable that they're looking at this and they don't want to miss an opportunity to put together a proposal. And there's this other grant application that's recently gone in, making this the easiest option if we're going to submit a funding request. So I certainly understand where this is coming from. I'm not sure that it's the wisest, most strategic way to go about getting hub funding in our area. I would be really surprised if we could successfully apply for this type of funding more than once for our region. Also in this letter, it does say in the second paragraph that given the level of interest in food hubs, we're hoping to be able to fund additional regional food hubs in the next fiscal year as well. So, I mean, it's fairly clear there that this is not a one-time only, and I don't think that we would be really giving up a golden opportunity in getting a food hub if we go ahead with this one. So I think I'm definitely leaning towards maybe pausing on this. However, I do have a couple of other questions. I guess, first of all, is there another decision point, or is this it? We either support it at this point and proceed, or is there going to be an opportunity for a second look at this in the next week or so?
Madam Chair, no other opportunity with respect to the grant application, but components of realizing the hub will have to come forward for our other decisions, be it the agreement or otherwise, or any commitment that will involve the regional district in one way, shape, or form will come forward. So to realize if the grants is successful, there will be other decision points, but in terms of this application going forward, I don't see other decision points for this board.
Great. Thank you for the clarification. I do have another question as well. Just the staff report was very helpful in kind of understanding what exactly we're talking about. I mean, I didn't attend the COW, but I did go back and watch the presentation so I could better understand what we're going to be discussing tonight. And that syrup grant has not been obtained yet. And then it looks like a lot of what we're hoping to develop with the food hub grant would be contingent on the first grant being successful. Is it possible we could end up with the food hub grant and not really be able to implement what's planned because the rest of the upgrades for the hall are no longer viable without the other grant in place? Is that a possibility?
Over to staff.
I'll do my best to answer that. Our understanding is that we think the food hub grant from the Ministry of Agriculture will be adjudicated quite quickly. So we'll likely hear about that one prior to the syrup grant. And I guess one of the differences is for the Ministry of Agricultural grant, it did very much focus on the commercial kitchen component and some of the needed items such as an upgrade to septic and commercial hood venting and those kinds of things, so that it, in my opinion, could stand alone. And the syrup grant, the additional money there would just bring some additional items such as, I'm going by memory, some additional storage and those and different types of items that would, improve the capabilities of a food hub at the location.
Okay, great. Thank you. That was very helpful. That's all my questions.
Thank you. Director Arbour.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, what I've heard, as you guys know, I'm not as close to the agricultural sector, even though we do have some in the area for sure. But our agricultural plan dates from 2002, and we're looking to update that in the next while. It's not like there's another, as far as I know, food hub application just waiting to be submitted. Otherwise, I imagine it would have gotten at the top of the pile. I think we've had staff of the district and community partners and CVRDs put something together that to me makes sense. I see the value. I see when I listen to the presentation from the Referral Association, they saw the value. I know in fast applications like that, not everything's perfect, but I'd like to, anyways, I'll support it. And ultimately, if the project is not up to par in the Ministry of Agriculture's eyes, it won't fly and we won't get the funding. As for the other questions, we have a ton of work to do on the agricultural side for the next number of years. And what I've heard, the Lush Valley, you're looking at connectivity, distribution. I'm glad to hear staff is meeting with them. This proposal around Merville seems to be more focused around some of the primary producers in that area. And the thing is, you know, if we work for next year, just as a warning, then I will ask that we include aquaculture. So you may have other challenges coming your way if you give this more time. I might ask for more connectivity with that sector. So I would say, you know, grant applications, put it in, look at the feedback of Ministry of Agriculture. If it fails, we'll learn something. So that's where I stand. Thank you.
Director Hillian.
Thank you, Chair. I don't claim any significant expertise in this area at all. I appreciate that there are points of contention. I'm also a strong supporter of Lush Valley, and I'm very pleased to hear that we're continuing to work with them on a future location for their activities. But bearing all that in mind, I don't see thwarting this particular application at this time, and so I will be voting in favor.
Thank you, Director Morin.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that there is already an application in for 978,000 or whatever. So that is pending already. And I, you know, I would not want to, I'd be very cautious about accessing food that is not meeting those safety requirements. I'd be concerned about the mixed use of that particular building. And I just, it's not the idea of a food hub that many of the partners who weren't actually brought in have in mind. So I can't support it. There is another grant application in already. So I don't see this as being imperative. Thanks.
Thank you. Seeing no further hands up, it's a vote of the areas Courtney and Comox, and I'll go through the roll. Director Hamir?
Opposed.
Oh, sorry. We're on receipt. Anyone opposed to receipt? Hearing and seeing none. Onto the recommendation, and so I'll go through the roll.
Oh. You want me to move the recommendation?
Director Grant and
Second.
Director Grieve, thank you.
Okay, and then I'll vote in favor of the recommendation.
Okay, Director Swift. Director Swift, are you still there? Okay, we'll come back. Director Cole Hamilton.
In favor.
Director McCollum.
In favor.
Director Morin.
Opposed.
Opposed. Director Hillian.
In favor.
Director Grieve.
In favor.
Director Arbor. In favor. Director Hamir.
Opposed.
Opposed. And Director Swift has texted in that she is in favor. And the motion is carried. Thank you. And now we can move in camera.
Motion to move in camera.
Second.